Greetings everyone, this is SteamTeamRedubUK, CC Trainor-Ling, and I'm back to bring you my first episode review for Season 9 of The Loud House. While technically this would have been considered the start to the second half of Season 8, Nickelodeon decided to split the original episode order into two parts, and now we have a separate 9th season. Apparently this decision was made because it makes things easier when it comes to releasing content on streaming services, which I guess makes sense in this day and age. Anyway, now that that's out of the way, let's get right into my first review for Season 9 of The Loud House. Today's episode is Crystal Ballin. In this episode, Lynn looks into Lucy's crystal ball to see what the future has in store for her, and she doesn't like what she sees, and does what she can to change her future in order to achieve a more desirable outcome. Right off the bat, the first thing I thought about was the episode Raw Deal. Conceptually, that episode and this one have the same basic idea, which would be the main character drives themselves crazy about the future after learning about what might happen to them at some point down the road. This time, however, the main character can literally see into the future via a crystal ball instead of Lucy using fortune-telling cards. Then a prediction comes true when something happens to a character based on what was written on the card. Like Lori being told she will be going on a long trip and she ends up slipping on some oil and then taking a long trip onto a pile of garbage. It may have been a series of bizarre coincidences, but to a degree, all of Lucy's predictions did come true. Lynn's situation in this episode is kinda similar to that of Lincoln's from the aforementioned episode from Season 1. While Lincoln tried to change his future by doing whatever he could to prevent his day from ending in tragedy, Lynn tries to change her future by doing whatever she can to prevent a somewhat tragic life as an athlete when she's an adult. First, she thinks she's going to grow up to be a towel girl for Crikey the Kangaroo, so she begins to increase her strength training to make sure that never happens. She goes overboard pushing herself to be a better athlete, and after a few days, she effectively changed the course of her future when the crystal ball shows that she will become a very accomplished sports star. However, her new vision also shows that her many accomplishments came at the cost of her losing contact with her loved ones. So she tries to prevent that future from happening by trying to spend quality time with her siblings and friends, albeit just doing the bare minimum, and her new future shows that she's still in contact with her family. Unfortunately, this vision is still bad for her because even though she's happily married and has a few kids, something I honestly didn't think her character would ever want, they all have the same hair color as their father. Rusty Spokes. Wow. I know it's non-canon, but seriously, of all the people Lynn could possibly marry in the future, it's him? I swear the fandom had a field day when they first saw this. Anyway, this future scenario may have been brought on because Lynn was hanging out with and being nice to Rusty earlier in the day, so she decided to make it abundantly clear to Lincoln's friend that she and him would never end up together. Not unless the fandom has something to say about it. Lynn being rude to Rusty led to a more positive future in the crystal ball where she still had a family, but this time there were no redheads. Eric Cartman vibes, anyone? Now look, I'm just going to say it. This has got to be one of Lynn's stupidest episodes of the series so far. I know fans don't particularly like how Lincoln kept stressing himself out about his future in Raw Deal, but Lynn took her anxiety to a whole new level. While yes, she does the same thing as Lincoln where she begins contemplating all the bad things that might happen if she does something harmless, or I guess in her case, eating something harmless, she ultimately decides to play it safe by barricading herself in her bedroom for the next 10 years until her picture-perfect future starts. She's so paranoid about her future that she keeps gazing into Lucy's crystal ball to make sure her future stays exactly the way she wants it. This self-isolating plan of hers makes no sense because how exactly would she be able to achieve all those sports-related championships, let alone find a boyfriend and future husband, if she wouldn't even step outside the house? Plus, if the crystal ball showed a new future every time she fixed a problem in the present, wouldn't locking herself in her room for the next decade create a different future where she's all alone with 0 sports achievements and no family of her own? For someone who said she wanted to take control of her future, Lynn sure wasn't thinking this long-term plan of hers all the way through. But hey, this is what happens when you become insane and downright irrational. Lynn wouldn't even leave her house to play with her friends and tried to play from the safety of her bedroom, which, when about as good as you would expect. Say what you want about Lincoln's paranoia in Raw Deal, but at least he was outside and somewhat interacting with his family while trying to avoid the impending tragedy. Lynn, on the other hand, wouldn't even leave her room to get food or take a shower, so she had to find a way to bring all that stuff to her without having to step outside. And here's an interesting question. If she was paranoid about what the future might hold for her when she couldn't decide what to eat for breakfast, wouldn't she eventually experience the same irrational fear when she was bringing in all those buckets filled with the same food and water day in and day out? Do you not see how incredibly stupid and nonsensical this all is? Lynn taking control of her future started off okay in the beginning, but the gag stopped being funny a little more than halfway through when she became fixated on maintaining her vision of future success. Lucy has an idea on how to snap Lynn back to normal by putting together some kind of backyard event involving football, food, and mud. Upon listening to how much fun her family is having, and after getting a little convincing from her smiley face workout equipment, Lynn decides to venture outside and start embracing all the good things life has to offer, like meatballs. Oh, and family. Certainly can't forget about family. Overall, with this episode serving as the official premiere to Season 9, and forgetting the fact this was originally going to be the start to the second half of Season 8, this really wasn't the best way to kick things off. It was fine in the beginning, and Lynn definitely had her humorous moments on trying to change the trajectory of her future, but her hyper-paranoia about maintaining a positive outcome became more eye-rolling and facepalm-inducing than amusing. As I said, the story is more or less the same one used in Raw Deal, only it was handled much worse in this episode. While Lincoln stressed himself out trying to stop one bad thing from taking place, Lynn stressed herself out by trying to stop multiple bad things from taking place. I mean, her many course corrections yielded better future results than what she had seen previously, but each new vision added another setback and she had to keep fixing problems until she finally got the happy future she wanted. However, her plan to stay in her bedroom for the next 10 years to make sure nothing would screw up her ideal future was completely illogical. She wasn't doing anything to make sure her actions in the present would lead to the picture-perfect scenario she saw in Lucy's crystal ball and what she was fantasizing about during the first minute of the episode. She was doing the exact opposite of what she was doing before, so she was actually going to end up creating a miserable future instead of a happy one. It was extremely overwhelming for her character, extremely inconvenient for the rest of her family, and it was extremely ridiculous having to watch it all unfold as a viewer. Much like the realization Lincoln experienced at the end of Raw Deal, Lynn finally learns to stop constantly worrying about the future and not read too much into what a crystal ball is showing. You have to go out in the world and live it up, or else you'll miss out on all kinds of great things. While yes, that is a valuable life lesson, Raw Deal taught the same exact lesson all the way back in Season 1, and it was handled much better in my opinion. However, one big contrast between that episode and this one is how Lucy goes about talking about the future. In this episode, she's repeatedly telling Lynn that what she sees in the crystal ball is not necessarily set in stone because the future is always evolving. This is a drastic change from her mentality in Season 1 where she was repeatedly saying, "The cards don't lie." Hell, she's looked into crystal balls a few times in Seasons 1 and 2, and those predictions ended up coming true. Even Lola's psychic reading in this episode ended up being correct, and the one about her dad during the final scene was pretty spot on. So, which is it? Are Lucy's fortunes accurate, somewhat accurate, inaccurate, or what exactly? Lucy may have been a good voice of reason for this particular episode, but her stance on predicting someone's future and the aftermath of said prediction is anything but consistent. Still, for all the criticisms I have regarding this episode, my favorite highlights were some of the official in-universe designs of the Loud family as they would look 10 years in the future. I didn't expect Lynn to look that big and muscular before watching this episode, but then I remembered she's a die-hard athlete, so her having a large physique makes sense. And it should be noted that Lily's future design seen in the family picture is the same one she had in the Season 5 episode Appetite for Destruction, so I'll give the animators a point for consistency. But besides that, the rest of the episode is just not all that good. It's more stupid than outright bad, and maybe I'm overselling it here, but I can't think of a dumber episode for Lynn's character than this one right here. With that said, I give Ballin a 5 out of 10. Well folks, that concludes my review of full ballin'. So I gotta ask, what did you guys think of this episode? Sound off in the comments below, and be sure to click that subscribe button for more Loud House related content. That's going to do it for me. I'll catch you guys for the next video, but until then, this is SteamTeamRedubUK, CC Trainor-Ling, signing off. Peace out, home slices.